It's like it's the playoffs, even though it's the final game of the regular season for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Welcome, everybody, inside GameDay Winnipeg. We are live, as always, on Bonfire Sports. Darrin Bauming, pleased to be joined, as always, by Chris Walby, the legend. Chris, the Bombers are 10-7. We know all about the incredible amount of adversity they faced in starting 0-4 and 2-6 and winning 8 straight games, having a really tough loss against the Toronto Argonauts prior to their bye this past week. But now it's essentially the playoffs. They need to win in order to host the West Final at Princess Auto Stadium in Winnipeg. The words of the players all week were whatever it takes. And while the Montreal Alouettes don't have much to play for, I expect them to bring it. People better buckle up Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I agree with you, DB. The biggest thing you got to look at, bud, is this. Yeah, if normally this game against Montreal would, be a no-brainer because, Montreal will be resting guys. But the way they got spanked in the last week against BC, and it was great to see Vernon Adams Jr. come out and really light it up. And they smacked the Alouettes 27-3. Now, I don't care who you are. Danny Machoto, the GM, does not want to go into the playoffs on a 2-game losing streak. Because remember what it says, it's not where you start, it's where you finish, and you want to walk into the playoffs on a high note. So I agree with you. I think that the Alouettes are going to come fully prepared. They're showing for 𝙎𝙤𝙧𝙯, he only threw 9 passes last week. I like their backup, Davis Alexander. I fully expect the same thing to happen, but they want to get both those guys reps. For 𝙎𝙧𝙯, I would imagine play a quarter, maybe a half. But they want to win the game. That's the thing. So that puts a lot of pressure on the Bombers right now, buddy, because they know they have to win. They don't want to leave it to the Sunday game when Saskatchewan plays the Stampeders, who have just went into the outhouse this year, and allow the Saskatchewan Roughriders to have a chance to win and lock up first place in the event the Bombers lose in Montreal.
We are going to get into all of the implications of wins, ties, losses for the Bombers, for the Rough Riders, and how everything will shake out for the playoffs. We'll take a look at the Blue Bombers depth chart, roster, and injury situation, as well as the same for the Montreal Alouettes. And we're also going to talk about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Team Award nominees. These, of course, are the nominees that now enter the West Division voting. Our ballot is due Sunday. For most outstanding player, most outstanding Canadian, offensive lineman, defensive player, rookie, special teamer. And then, of course, you come out of the West, you go against the East nominee at the CFL Awards at Grey Cup week in Vancouver. And by the way, Bonfire Sports will be there. Chris, you gave me your plane ticket. I'm going to go to Vancouver and hold things down there, but you and I will have some conversations there. All expectations right now, despite that loss, Chris, to the Toronto Argonauts for Winnipeg a week and a half ago, whatever it was, prior to their bye week, is that they're the hottest team in the CFL. And you listen to radio in Regina or in BC, who would you rather face in the playoffs? Winnipeg is always the team that those markets would not want to face. Is Winnipeg going into the playoffs in the best shape you could hope? Of course, they got to play this game first.
I think so. I think they're playing well. I mean, what I've really been impressed with is the players they've put in these positions. When you got injuries, when it was Kyrie Wilson, I thought last week, even in the loss to the Argos, Brian Cole was a man on a mission, 8 tackles. Everywhere on the field, he caused a fumble. I really like the way that kid's playing weak side linebacker. Tony Jones is doing a great job filling in for Adam Bighill. I mean, I just think, and then there's a guy we talk about every week, Reddy Cramdy, who it's really interesting. Awesome. I read his article. What a wonderful article. His parents are from Algiers. They worked 3 jobs. I mean, he lost his brother, Sammy. He's talking about playing back in front of his. I don't even know if his family's ever seen him play in a CFL or professional game. So that's going to be huge for him. And then you got Kevan, obviously, Claricius in the same kind of scenario, hasn't played in Montreal for 8 years. But you look at that 3 core of linebackers, And they got Michael Ayers back, which is huge.
Yeah.
These guys are bona fide. They fit in the pieces. They just pluck and play. And I got to give credit to the scouts. And then again, Kyle Walters and the coaching staff, Jordan Younger, for knowing how to put these guys in positions where they can win. I'm looking for a good game. I know this game wouldn't be anywhere near as exciting if there wasn't so much on the line. But the Bombers have an opportunity to win the West again and host on November 9th. And that's what you want. Every team wants to win, and step one is make the playoffs. Step two, win your division, host a playoff game at home. Because, we got the best fans in the dang league. So, when you got that going for you, it's a good thing. And I know, is a spanking, can you learn more from a loss than you can from a win? I think you can. Let's talk about this, DB. Do you think the O-line had a rough game last week?
Real rough.
And I know that Zach stands up there and takes a sword every time. Half of that was me. I was trying to hold on to the ball too long.
I thought Collaros was awesome in that game against the Toronto Argonauts. The O-line didn't do their job well enough. That said, Toronto's defensive front, Chris, I know you saw this. They are incredible, tenacious, physical, fast. They come in waves at you. They're deep. They can just rotate guys in. They gave the Blue Bombers their hardest fight of the season. I haven't seen the O-line look that overwhelmed since it was week one and their loss to the Alouettes.
Yeah. And you know what? You're right on it, DB, because what I found too is when Zach said, I held on to the ball. What has that indicated? Indication to me is the DBs in the Argos backfield are doing a great job covering.
Yeah.
They're not allowing him to set his feet. They're not allowing him to look downfield into a second, third read. And that's, again, pressure from that front four. And the linebackers. I like their Winton McManus. He saved the game, right? And obviously when Zach took off, and I thought, here we go. The Bombers are going to find a way to do it again. And he comes out a half a yard short on a kind of a controversial placement of the ball. But having said that, that's the way the game is. Hey, listen, not to get off topic, I watched the LA Rams play last night against the Vikings. How in God's green earth do they miss the face masking with the quarterback at the end of the game? He's standing right there.
They said the officials didn't see it, and they couldn't review it. They said they couldn't review it.
That's bullshit. Come on, man. You know better than that. This is, what would that? I've seen this. Remember we watched, and I know I'm getting a little off topic about rest, but I remember a Super Bowl a couple of years ago, and the guy ran over the receiver in the end zone, and they end up losing the Super Bowl, and that should have been pass interference. It's just, you got to have somebody who says, bullshit, we ain't going to allow this.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's go back to where we are right now. I think that the Argos spanked the Bombers a little bit in the front, in, of course, the trenches.
The game was 14-11, but that was a generous score, I'll say.
Well, you don't convert on. And you don't convert on third down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did they miss, Jeff? Did they miss the big horse? Absolutely. Terry's good. He's quick, but he doesn't have the horsepower that Chris Trebler does on those short yardage plays.
Here's the numbers from that 14-11 loss, and you look at Winnipeg's second down conversion, or pardon me, Toronto's second down conversion rate versus Winnipeg's. Both, Toronto's pretty poor. Winnipeg's was okay, but 0 for 3 on third down, as you're speaking to, Chris. And the defensive pressure that they got, it's not just the sacks, but the sacks will tell the story. Flo Orlamade had 2. Hawley had 1. Brinkman had 1. Milton had 1. Parrish had 1. He also had a big tackle at the line of scrimmage. I know it's not showing a tackle for loss here, but he was huge. Jake Serezna had 1. He made some nice plays, on Brady Oliveira as well. You mentioned Winton McManus being a beast in that game. Winnipeg had their hands full. I wonder if that drew a blueprint for how to handle the Blue Bombers.
Yeah, and I said this beginning, D. I said the biggest thing is you learn more from a loss sometimes. And I think that somebody I don't know who said it, but somebody said it's better to lose now than lose the last game.
No doubt.
And I have to say this, for all you Chad Kelly haters out there, the guy is a magician in the pocket. I don't know how many times I saw he's going down and he escapes and he throws sidearm and he completes the ball. Now he's not going to play the last game. But say what you want about the guy and forget about all the other personal garbage that went on during the year. He did his time, for his crime, and now he's playing. And I think I'm reading a lot of comments from media. They're like, he's playing the best ball of anybody. But then I look at, and a guy you got to love him, is Bo Levi. You watch the show he put on, and he's their nominee in Hamilton for MOP. 5,000-yard passer. He threw for 5 touchdowns.
Chris,
the problem is
it's crazy to think that the only MOP nominee in the CFL that is a quarterback, it's just one, which is weird, but he's on a non-playoff team. You would have told me that in May. I would have been like, you're insane. There's no way. But here we are.
I wish we had and I wish we had the someone to look that up. Has anybody not made the playoffs and won the MOP? That'd be interesting to see, because obviously he's not. It's a league run by. They like to look at the records, and they put a lot of emphasis on that, because obviously your team has accomplished something by winning and winning the division or whatever. I think the guy, talking about our guy, can he be a double winner? You know what? He might be. He'll get Canadian again. I don't think he's going to lose Canadian, but this might be the year of the defensive player. I mean, I'm looking at Tyrese Beverett from Montreal, who's their nominee. 98 tackles, 4 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions. He's a machine. Yeah. And we're not even talking about Darnell Sankey, who has 100 tackles. So, I mean, and then you got the guy in Saskatchewan, number 0, Roland Milligan. He's almost number 1 in special teams tackles. He's had interceptions. He leads the league's in interception. He's going to get a lot of votes. And he's up for three nominations. Special teams, defense, most outstanding player. When you get 3, you go away with 1. It's going to be a crusher for somebody to go up to 3 and then go and be the bridesmaid at all 3 of them. So I don't know. This is why I love it. It is, as you said, Darrin, you're right on. Usually it's a quarterback. It's the pretty guys. The guys get all the skinny women. They're the guys that, they get the prizes too, right? You go up there, they got beautiful hair. You never see ugly quarterbacks. You see ugly fat old linemen, you see ugly fat other guys, but you don't see quarterbacks go up there. They got the nice tailored suits. I remember when I was up there for the awards, I was up 4 times for most outstanding.
Yeah.
Lost the last 2 to Jimmy Mills. But you know what? The funniest part is trying to go get fitted for tuxes, because they don't fit you properly. If you got big legs, then they got to take it in your waist. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's like shoving a 10-pound turkey in a 5-pound bag. It ain't pretty, man. And then you got the quarterbacks going out there, dash rip rock, with the hair all flung back and
dash
trim the beard.
Rip rock.
There you go, buddy.
Wow. I don't know what that means, but I love it.
Yeah, it's a crazy name, and I love the name too, Dash. It's gonna be fun, bud. I'm looking forward to it, and I know that we were off air talking about it, and the 2 deletions that Montreal is sitting. One is, and we've talked about this guy. He's a horse. Mustafa Johnson has blocked punts, blocked field goals, got 6 sacks. And the other guy that I really always liked is Ademi Berglund, 7 sacks. They're resting these guys. Maybe they got a little nick. And then you got the guy they brought back from the NFL in Austin Mack, who hasn't got a touchdown, but he's only played a couple games.
Yeah. And
we saw what he did last year.
Now, resting guys this time of year, Chris, is a double-edged sword, because sometimes guys need it. But then, Montreal won the division. They will have a bye next week, no matter what happens in this game. Winnipeg, to reiterate, needs a win or a tie to capture first place and host the West Final and get a bye next week as well. Kyrie Wilson is close to returning for Winnipeg, but will not play in this game. You mentioned that the Bombers are getting Michael Ayers back. They're getting Michael Griffin back, which I understand a lot of people don't know who Michael Griffin is. Okay. This dude right here has balled out this season as a rookie. He's played corner, half, drops back, plays dime with Cramdy, plays the line of scrimmage. He's all over the place. So getting him back, getting Michael Ayers back that you mentioned, Chris. Bailey Feltmate has been injured for a long time. The special teamer and fullback. Getting Gabe Wallace back, the rookie offensive lineman, to be number 7, along with 𝘽𝙤𝙤𝙧𝙚 as the backups, and getting Miles Fox, who they have here at defensive end. No, he doesn't play defensive end. He plays tackle, but they're going to roll with Garbutt. They're going to roll with Jefferson, and they're going to rotate it. Like they'll put Adams on the edge. They'll put, Jefferson inside. They'll put Garbutt inside. They do all these different types of things. So don't believe that Miles Fox is a defensive end. He is a thick, wide defensive tackle. But getting those guys back, and then to look at their injured list, Brandon Alexander has an injured hand. How serious it is, I do not know, but he is out of the lineup. Same with Celestin Haba. I don't have too much information on Haba and what that may entail. Defensive lineman Kyle Sampson has been in the lineup this year. Micah Vanterpool, the offensive lineman. We know Big Hill is done for the season. Same with Cam Lawson. Same with Jamal Parker, Dalton Schoen, and Chris Streveler. They're all done for the season. Kyrie Wilson is close. I expect him to be ready to go for the playoffs. Drew Wolodarski, do not know. But it leaves Winnipeg with some questions at safety with no Brandon Alexander. There's Jake Kelly. You got the Hallett brothers. Dietrich Nichols has been lining up there as well. They have options, but that rest versus rust, Chris, so key that, especially in a game Winnipeg needs to win, that they balance overworking guys versus maybe giving them one more game on the injured list before the playoffs.
Yeah, what's funny, we go back to one of your first points about dressing Gabe Wallace and 𝘽𝙤𝙤𝙧𝙚. I fully expect the Bombers to try and establish the run game. They're Montreal's number 6. They allow 119 or 120 yards a game. I think if you go double tight and just pound the hell out of bully ball out of Brady, and maybe throw Johnny a couple touches too, Johnny Augustine, I think that's going to work wonders as far as taking the pressure. Now, the Argos, again, they did a great job last game against. They took Brady right out of the game. And they even took away his short little passes, because that's it's kind of like a check release for Zach. But, and then, of course, we didn't talk about this, but they signed a guy that's 36 years old who hasn't played in 11 months in Nick Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
He played and he won the Grey Cup in 2019 and again in 21.
Defensive back,
and 36 years old. He ain't a spring chicken. But he has experience. But again, I look at that one thing, 36. Well, I look at two things, 36, and the fact he hasn't played for almost a year.
If you need a guy in the playoffs, don't you want someone you can trust to not make a mental mistake? I would take that over a foot more of speed.
Well, I'll tell you, I do agree with you to a point. But again, and I always say this about anybody coming in off an injury even, it takes a while to get used to the bullets flying again, where it's live under the lights. And I looked at Kyrie Wilson.
But Taylor was in Calgary this year. He played football this year.
Well,
he's been on the field. I don't know if he's played in a game. But he's been on the field. He's practiced with a football team. He's not coming off the couch.
No, and I agree. And he's in great shape, they say. I mean, obviously, the club's not going to sign a guy and bring him in here for a look-see. Yep. Not this year, right? This is when they're prepping up for the big run right now.
Guy's got a great cup.
Well, they know him. I guess he's a very intelligent guy from what I hear.
Very well liked.
Communicator.
Yeah.
Great communicator. Obviously just got back, so, they're not going to throw him in, which just made me, I was kind of curious about that, to be honest with you, buddy. I thought they might, dress him. But again, the system is a little different now with Jordan Younger, even though Richie Hall is still there. So, I mean, that's the thing you got to work out. They're going to have to get some pressure on. I don't care if it's Fajardo or Davis Alexander. I like this Alexander kid. I mean, from what I watched him when Fajardo pulled a hamstring, this kid's got some talent. He's a future.
Wait, sorry, who are you talking about?
Davis Alexander.
Oh, on Montreal.
Yeah. I jump all over the place because I got my cheats in front of me, buddy. And
I got you.
I look at certain things that are just going to pop off for me.
Well, I know you're looking at your sheets because we don't see your beautiful face. I know you were saying the quarterbacks are the only good-looking ones, but I beg to differ.
Yeah, well, I know, and thank you for that, brother. But I'll tell you this. How about that other running back, Walter Fletcher? Number 1 in the CFL for yak yards, which was, and I know, yards after the catch. 587 yak yards. Number 1. Number 3, our buddy Brady O with 400 yards. So, I mean, this is, you can tell it's these are guys that are really not only a great running backs, but can catch the football out of the backfield and make something of nothing. So I really look forward to that. I've always liked Cody Fajardo. Man, I said that, when we lost to the Grey Cup into him on that last play with and there's a guy they lost, Montreal, Tyson Philpott, who was just, the last time they played, he had 10 catches for over 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he's also the guy that broke our back in the Grey Cup game.
Yeah, it was a tough loss for them.
That's a huge. Yeah, but that's 2 years. You can't. That's why it's 60 minutes, brother. 60 minutes. And I don't like that line till a fat lady sings because that's discriminatory to women. I just think that it's you got to play 60 minutes. But yeah, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at okay, what do they got? Do I think their defense? Well, if it wasn't for Sankey and then the other guy that had an interception against us last year, and Marc-Antoine Decoy, he had an interception for a touchdown against Zach last year.
Mm-hmm.
But Sankey, Beverett, Murray, Najee, they I don't know if they're as strong in the back as we are. I like our back. I mean, obviously Tyrell Ford with 7 interceptions. Evan Holm is still leads the team in tackles with 80. No interceptions though, which surprises me, unless I read it wrong. But I think that they're playing the strong side of the field. I think they're doing really well. I mean, I like them, and obviously the leader,
Chris,
to me, is
the defense. The Blue Bombers defense is playing its best football since 2021. Yes. Right? Remember the dark side defense that really led the way. This dark side defense is back, and if you add Kyrie Wilson to that linebacking core, we know Big Hill's done for the season, but Tony Jones, Brian Cole. Add Kyrie Wilson to that, the way Griffin and Cramdy are playing in that hybrid spot at the dime. Ford could be Winnipeg's most outstanding defensive player. He could get, it's possible he could come out of the West. I think Roland Milligan will give him a run for his money. But Dietrich Nichols,
so do I.
You all know how high I am on him, and the way this D line is playing. Under Jordan Younger and Daryl Patterson and the entire defensive coaching staff, Richie Hall, of course, it's been so impressive. But I wanted to.
I want to just interrupt you 1 little second there, brother.
Yeah.
Just want to tell you something. As much as I'm impressed with the 7 interceptions by Tyrell Ford, I'm more impressed with a guy playing a halfback position, which is one of the hardest positions to play, who's got a couple interceptions, a couple forced fumbles, in Dietrich Nichols.
And a strip sack.
This guy.
Remember when he just ripped the ball away from Tyrell Ford or Trey Ford?
Yeah, and I think everybody, this is the truth. Everybody wants to get nominated. I don't give a shit if they say it's just for the team. Everybody wants to be recognized for what they've done on this team. Because once it's all over, that's all you hang your hat on. And I think that Dietrich
your rings
Nichols,
and your words.
To me, I think that Dietrich Nichols, he'll be an all CFL guy, but I still think that, if I was looking at this, I know the 7 interceptions pops out at me. 47 tackles, but he's got 45 tackles. He's got 3 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles. As you say, a strip sack. Man, it's tight. I don't know. I mean, they'd be my 1-2. And I know Chris, you get 2 choices, but
let me say this, okay? Let me say this to your point. Here's the Blue Bombers nominees for most outstanding player, Brady Oliveira. That was unanimous amongst the 4 voters on the Football Reporters of Canada and head coach Mike O'Shea. Those are the 5 voters here in Winnipeg. I am one of 4 media voters. Brady Oliveira, unanimous for MOP. Brady Oliveira, unanimous for most outstanding Canadian. Stanley Bryant, unanimous for most outstanding offensive lineman. Sergio, unanimous for special teams player. And Ontario Wilson, the receiver, unanimously voted as most outstanding rookie on the Blue Bombers. Most outstanding defensive player, Tyrell Ford, was not a unanimous vote. I voted for 𝙎𝙤𝙛𝙚𝙧𝙚 Nichols, and Tyrell Ford was my second vote. You get a first vote and a second vote, and the second vote helps break ties and all that stuff. But it was unanimous. I wonder if I was the only voter. I don't know if I was the only voter to vote for 𝙎𝙤𝙛𝙚 Nichols. The plays he makes at the line of scrimmage, the way he ripped the ball out of Tyrell Ford's or Trey Ford's hands in that game against Edmonton, the first of that back-to-back, I think that's like maybe the defensive play of the year, and there's been a handful. Dropping back to safety, could play some safety in this game. Tackles for loss, blitzing the quarterback. He's starting to get tested because Tyrell Ford, being the, young Canadian at corner, they can't throw his way, so they're throwing 𝙎𝙤𝙛𝙚 Nichols' way, and he's coming away with picks now. It's time 𝙎𝙤𝙛𝙚 Nichols gets his due. He was the Pro Football Focus top-ranked defensive back in week 20 or week 19, which was good to see. And, I mean, Tyrell Ford's got the numbers, but for me, 𝙎𝙤𝙛𝙚 Nichols was the most outstanding defensive player for the Bombers.
Yeah, and that's my point. I think sometimes whether I voted or not, and I was when I was working for CBC, I got a vote for 10 years. So I know the reality of when you have to pick somebody and how, especially when you get into the All Canadians now, right? When you're doing the All Stars, and then you got to break it down and okay, now who's the best at, it gets crazy, and you really got to know those guys. And yes, I think that's why I told you earlier in one of the shows we did that to me the nicest award I received, regardless of all the other ones, was when the CFLPA, recognize you, because that's your peers, and nobody on your team vote for you. It has to be from the opposition. So that to me, and I know he'll get that. And they used to do such a great job because they used to put posters out, and I still have a couple in the outhouse where they belong. But it's just it's just good, man. I mean, you sit there and go, look at that guy, man. He's skinny, and then I'm looking at I to my point there about 𝙎𝙤𝙛𝙚,
I'm with you.
I'd like to see the guy. I'd love to see him get some recognition, some love. He'll probably get it with the All-Star. He'll get it with the CFLPA, I bet you. But it's still nice when you get the team nominal, and that's one of those things that's hard. I mean, you're always happy for the guy, but you're like, God. I was a lineman nominee 9 times. And I remember I lost the one, and I lost it to my buddy, rest in peace, Lyle Bauer, who was my roomie, and I was happy. I said, yeah, I'm happy. But deep down, I'm like, son of a gun. I wish I could, because I don't give a shit. Nobody's going to lie to go, oh, it's a team game. I'm so happy for him. Bullshit. You want to get some recognition, too. So, I mean,
of course.
You have to think like that. If you don't go into a game thinking you're the best or try to be the best, you're never going to be the best. And that's what I like about Stanley. Stanley is, Brian, I think it's his 7th nomination or 8th nomination now. He's way up there. Will he win this year? I don't know. I think in other years he was way more dominant. I think that when you look at that offensive line, Eric Lofton, Newfie was out for a while.
It was clearly Stanley. It was clearly Stanley.
Well, he can't go. And he was unanimous. Yep. That'll be interesting. But he's got some guys that are going to give him. He'll have a race this year.
I need to bring this up.
Bring it.
I don't like the way the voting is held in the CFL. Chris, if you have the 2 best offensive linemen in the whole CFL play on 2 West Division teams, one of them is getting left off the ballot. I think that's Absolutely. A travesty. Same Absolutely. With All-Stars. If the 3 best linebackers in the league are in Calgary, Edmonton, and BC, somebody's getting left off those All-Star votes, right? Because you got you got two interior linebackers and then the cover linebacker. That's the dime back, right? Yep. But if the two best safeties in the league are on West Division teams or East Division teams, someone's getting left off the ballot. Same too with these MO awards. Because, for example,
I agree.
Most outstanding player, like what if there are two most outstanding players on the same team? Why can't, just trying to, have an example where
it's very tough.
Like
very tough.
Tyrell Ford, most outstanding defensive player, and Dietrich Nichols, instead of, somebody in Calgary or somebody in Edmonton, or, I'm not going to call out an individual on that case, but to me, it is flawed. I think they need to fix that. And as a member of the Football Reporters of Canada executive, I'm going to bring that up at our annual general meeting this year.
That's good.
But that all said, I do think the voters in Winnipeg got it right for the most part. Of course, I did vote for Dietrich over Tyrell Ford, but it'll be interesting to see if Ford can take on, a Roland Milligan, a Tyrese Beverette in the East, a Gary Peters in BC. And then, for most outstanding player, can Brady Oliveira take on Roland Milligan? Only one of those two is going to be up for the award at the Grey Cup at the CFL Awards. To me, that's the issue, where you have Bo Levi Mitchell, a quarterback on on a non-playoff team, and he's got a nominee chance to come out of the East. I think it'll be Beverette. Whoops. Pardon me.
Yeah, I think it'll be Beverette too.
That's what it'll be Beverette.
They think the MOP this year will probably be a defensive player. And I think sometimes they do that just to make it look like it's not always the same, right?
Well, that didn't happen for a long time. It wasn't. I think it was my first or second year voting, and honored to vote, honored to have a ballot. And Solomon Elamimian won it because he had 143 tackles or something ridiculous and broke the record.
BC, yeah, you're right.
But that needs to happen more often.
Well, and I agree with you because it's like they always talk about guys get pissed off too, and they say,
"Here, come back to that microphone."
Why is there not? I
want to see your face, but I want to hear you too.
Why is there not a defensive line, outstanding defensive lineman? You know what I mean?
100%.
When you group them all into that defense, and then most of the time it's going to be a linebacker or a DB.
Mm-hmm.
You can just basically wipe out any defensive tackle unless Mike Walker, who played in Hamilton, or some of these guys who were just absolute studs in the middle. But it's tough. It really is tough because it's a stat-driven league. Yeah. And a lot of times, like they'll even say, nobody knows how to vote for no lineman, so they just go to the coach. They go to the coach and say, "Okay, coach, who's grading out the best every game?" All right, and that's what's happening. That's what they do on D because they grade all the time. But the problem is, where does it go after that? You're not getting nominated unless you're like Willie and having maybe a 15 sack year, or like Betts, who did last year when he had 18 quarterback sacks. Again,
won a game.
18 sacks, 18 games. It's a phenomenal stat. But if
Willie Jefferson needs one sack to reach 75 in his career, he would be the 29th player to ever do that. And while we're on the numbers, Kolaris needs 2 touchdown passes to become the 13th player to have 200 touchdown passes in their CFL career. Ontario Wilson has 943 receiving yards. As a rookie, to hit 1,000 would really be something. So he needs 57 for that. Nick Dembski is 60 yards away from a consecutive 1,000-yard receiving season, I think is just an outstanding thing. And if Winnipeg can capture a win on Saturday, Chris, that would put the all-time series in the regular season between the Bombers and the Alouettes. If Winnipeg wins, it would be 52, 52, and 2. It would even the all-time series between the two franchises. So just to make everything nice and balanced, a Bombers win, I think, is what we can expect.
Well, and I think that too is great. I mean, Montreal started off on fire. I mean, obviously they were 10-1, and they've only been 2-3-1 the last 5 games or 6 games, but they're 6-2 at home, Very tough to beat at home, and they're 6-2 versus the West. Conversely, the Bombers have won their last 4 road games.
Yep.
Which, again, it's a plus. So you got plus. You're trying to break down everything almost like you're betting on the game. Like you're, the guys that go and look for the odds. So like, who's got the benefit? Home field always has a bit. You always have a little bit there.
Well, how about this? When leading at the half, the Bombers are 9-1 this season. The Alouettes 9-0 when leading at the half. When leading after 3 quarters, entering the 4th quarter, leading this season, the Bombers are 7-1. The Alouettes 10-0 when leading after 3 quarters.
Wow. What's after first?
What do you mean?
Have it? Did you have the quarter?
After first quarter, I don't know.
Yeah, I was looking at that the other day, and I was going to look it up today, but I was running around trying to get stuff here with the charts. I know that I did it last week, and it basically breaks it down. And I think the Bombers, when they score first, they've got some kind of record like they were 7 or 8 or 8-0 or something like that.
Scoring first.
And to me, it's just but what did they have? Who scored first in the Toronto game last week? I can't remember. I think it was Toronto. I think Toronto won 7-0. I think.
But
I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
Here it is. First place will host the West Final on Saturday, November 9th, 5:30 Central Time, 6:30 Eastern. Second place, that is if the Bombers lose on Saturday, a win or a tie, they will capture first and host that West Final November 9th. A loss, and they will host BC in the Western semifinal on Saturday, November 2nd, 5:30 Central Time. So that's a Winnipeg win or a tie, first place, and then Saskatchewan takes second. The implications of Saskatchewan. If both the Bombers and the Riders lose, the Riders are playing the Stampeders. I don't expect them to lose. You never know, though. But if if Winnipeg loses and Saskatchewan wins, they'll capture first. If Winnipeg and Saskatchewan both lose, Winnipeg claims first in the West and Saskatchewan takes second. So that's the only saving face if Winnipeg loses, is a Saskatchewan loss or a Saskatchewan tie. But with the way Calgary's been playing and the type of season that they've had, Chris, Winnipeg needs to win. I don't expect Saskatchewan to lose that game. Everybody wants to go into the playoffs with a little momentum, right? And I think that's why the Alouettes are going to bring a good game too.
I think exactly right. And I think the Bombers, there's another thing on on my chart for why the Bombers need to win. And that's because you want that home game in the West Final, one away from the Cup. Secondly, when you look at it, the teams that's scaring me right now are out of the West. Well, Toronto too, I shouldn't knock them, but I'm just talking coming out of the West. BC with the invigorated, oh my God, what kind of performance when they got, what's his name back there, passing, come on, help me out with this guy. I got a mental here. Vernon Adams Jr. And he just threw the heck out of that ball, man. He played great, 385 yards. And then you got Saskatchewan. And it drives me nuts because Saskatchewan's like, you know what? I don't know who's going to be gone next year in BC, if it's going to be Nathan Rourke or Vernon Adams, but we need to pick him up. And I'm watching their quarterback, and he's having a great year. It's just crazy, man, because these teams scare me. They really do. I mean, I think, Saskatchewan went in the crapper for a while. So did BC. But as we state, it doesn't where you start, it's where you end. And you just hit the key word, momentum. We were 9-9, and we won the '88 Grey Cup on 2 road games, beating Hamilton and then beating Toronto in Toronto and winning the Cup in a really tight one against BC in Ottawa. So it can be done.
It can.
And that's a scary thing, right? It's who's hot, who's not, and and taking advantage. That's why I see the Bombers. I don't care what you say. And Montreal is a weird place because, I mean, you got to watch your players now. For anybody that's ever been to Montreal, it is party town. And we used to go to meetings, but they had curfew, but not really curfew. So we could get out, go have dinner, right? So we go down to Montaigne Avenue or something, or Church Avenue, and you'd have a couple something to eat, maybe a couple quick cocktails, nothing crazy. But entertainment, it's like Montreal is like rush hour at 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
It's just crazy out there. So it's always been something that if your players aren't focused and you get caught up in that, you never know what's going to come out of there. So that's another intriguing point of being on the road for this game too. I don't think I'd even worry about it if the Bombers are at home to play their last game right now. But the fact that they got to go to Montreal does not want to lose 2 in a row going into the playoffs, even though they clinched the final. They want to have some momentum. I think, and when I look at they're sitting some guys, but they weren't going to play Fletcher. Well, Walter Fletcher's playing. They were going to play Austin Mack. He was banged up. They're playing him. Those guys are good. Now they lost one of their offensive linemen. Now they got Jamar McCloster at the right tackle. I don't even know who their offensive lineman nominee is. Is it 𝙎𝙥𝙤𝙧𝙯? I don't know who it is. I didn't look at Montreal. But it doesn't really matter. I don't really care about their O-line. But I just think it's going to be to me, it's going to be an exciting game. And it's an afternoon game, which is weird, right? You know what I mean?
I think it's awesome that it's an afternoon game. It bookends the season, right?
Around.
We're getting a bookend of the regular season, a Grey Cup rematch week 1, a Grey Cup rematch week 21.
Yeah, and you're not sitting around. I hate late games too when we're sitting around. Then they have meetings, and you try to lay down and have a rest before the game, but you can't. So we'd always go over there like 4.5 hours before the game, just to get out of the hotel.
Yeah,
just to get into the locker room. And, you sit in ice tubs and do whatever you got to do mentally. And because there's a lot of superstitions going out there, right? You know what I mean? You ought to do the same stupid thing. I wouldn't let anybody else pull my jersey when on my shoulder pads, except for Brad Foddy.
Yeah.
Nobody else. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. And I had, that was before Brad, it was the previous trainer or equipment guy, Len Amy. But those are the only 2 guys. And Brad did it with me for, 10 years. And, we were almost, we were that, he knows I'm nuts. You're jacked. You're jacked up, man. You're like banging, you're doing stupid things. You're sitting there, you're rocking. Everybody's got headphones on, or sometimes they're blasting music. And you're just thinking, oh, let's go out there. You got to go out. What are my assignments? Got to make sure, who am I playing against? Ah, shit. I got, what's his name? God dang it. Oh, Hamilton Tycat, Grover Covington. Oh, I better make sure I set my ass low. I'm telling you, these things you think about, because Grover was so freaking strong. If you stood up on him, he'd throw you like a bag of trash.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was good. But anyway, that's it's almost like I remember going to the locker room. It's crazy, man.
Before we get your keys to the game, Chris.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second here. I want to talk about a book that I just started reading, and it's called My New Hero, written by a Winnipegger, Douglas Savage, and also co-written by John Davidson. This book is so cool. Douglas Savage grew up in Winnipeg and Elmwood High School. And then when he was a kid, him and his buddies, they tell this story about Douglas going to a Jets and Oilers morning skate, that sort of thing, and having a chance encounter with Wayne Gretzky. Now, you'll be able to find the link to this book in the video description below. You can find it on Amazon, Kindle, Indigo, all of that. Incredible story about his chance encounter, a walk 45 minutes from the rink to Gretzky's hotel, and how it changed, kind of forged a lifelong friendship amongst a handful of lifelong friendships in Douglas Savage's life. So go check it out. Wow. My New Hero, Memories of the Rink Rats. Christmas is right around the corner. This is a great opportunity to grab something for someone in your life that might be tough to buy for. Just a great book and a super cool story. Doesn't matter if you're young or old, people will be able to relate to this one. My New Hero, Memories of the Rink Rats by Douglas Savage. Links to his Instagram and the book and everything on Amazon in the video description below. Chris, your keys to the game. As the Bombers sit at 10-7, look to win or tie, get some points in the standings, go into the playoffs with some momentum, get a bye next week so they can host that West Final.
Well, I tell you what, I'm excited for this game, and like I said, I think it's like, and you hit it perfectly. You know, the first game was a Grey Cup rematch. Now we're almost in a Grey Cup rematch again. Right now, the last game with so much on the line. So for me, offensively, I'm going to take a quote that I took just from Zach Collaros. He said, "We need to be more disciplined, more focused. We need first down production. We want to dictate the flow of the game." And that was from Buck Pierce, the coordinator. But I think you got to protect the quarterback. 7 sacks last time against Toronto, and protect the football, because the last time they played Montreal in Winnipeg, they had 3 turnovers, and they can't win football games like that. Defense, it's like this. Vengeance is my saith. Oh, vengeance is mine, saith the Bomber D. I wrote this out, and you can tell my handwriting is shitty. After losing the last 2 games to Montreal here at home, and of course the crushing loss at the Grey Cup. And special teams, I think that Mike Miller's done a phenomenal job. Continue to dominate on covered teams. I wasn't sure who they're going to play because Walter Fletcher's got 2 touchdowns returning, but they're signing a new guy, and his name is Taiwan Lindsay, 5'8" out of Oregon State. They're dressing him and specifically as a returner. And you know what? These little 5'8", they're like water beetles. They're all over the place. They run. They can get away. They jig, they zag. And you think you got them, and they're running past you. So I'm curious to see what they do. Maybe they don't want Walter to take any more hits than he has to. But we'll have to see. But it's going to be a good game, DB, and I swear to God, I'll be watching it. I'm going to Lake tomorrow, and it's sad because it's time to almost shut her down. Turn the water off. Have a bonfire, one last bonfire.
Oh yes, one last real bonfire. But you'll be here on lots of bonfires here. All through the playoffs.
Oh, nice segue, buddy. I like that.
I thought you were making the segue.
Well, I make segues. Is that a sandwich?
You'll be watching the game, and then you'll be tuning in like everybody else for Game Day After Dark. Myself, Zach Schnitzer, Brian Vesnaver of Pro Football Focus will join us on the postgame show. So that's going to be a ton of fun. Live after the game, Saturday evening, of course, with that afternoon start between the Bombers and the Alouettes. Have a lot of fun, Chris. I love that hat. If people want one, BonfireSports.ca/hat is where you get that. And be sure to check out my new hero, Memories of the Rink Rats, a Winnipeg story about a bunch of kids at the rink, Wayne Gretzky, the Winnipeg Jets, a really cool story. Link in the description below for that too. But have fun this weekend.
I appreciate it, buddy. Have a great one. And the Bombers, come on, buddy. We're so close, buddy. I used to say this, 60 minutes, 60 plays, 30 a half, 50 and a quarter. You win every quarter, you win the game. There you go, brother. Take that to the bank.